Between 1987 and 1997, a Fox sitcom arrived that nobody asked for and everyone needed. Married with Children didn't just bend the rules of family television. It threw them out entirely. At a time when the genre was built on warm lessons and tidy resolutions, this show dared to suggest something more uncomfortable: that families stumble, parents fail, kids are selfish, and nobody grows by the time the credits roll. Over 11 seasons and 262 episodes, the Bundy household became an unlikely mirror for American life. By the time it ended, television would never quite return to what it had been. Today we're looking back at the 10 key players who made that possible and tracing what happened to them in the decades since. Among them, two who've crossed into their 70s, one fighting a condition that would stop most people cold, and one who died while the show was still finding its footing. Several broke free from the molds the show built around them. Others went on to become directors, advocates, and artists who used their time in that fictional Chicago suburb as a launching pad for something entirely different. One name we're saving for last, but you'll recognize it the moment we get there. 1. Christina Applegate as Kelly Bundy. She walked onto that set at 17, playing the beautiful, scatterbrained Bundy daughter in a role that easily could have swallowed her whole. But Applegate treated her years on the show as an education rather than a destination. After the series wrapped, she moved deliberately through a range of projects. Comedies like Samantha Who, dramatic turns in Dead to Me, building a case that she was far more than the character that launched her. Then, in 2021, while finishing the final season of Dead to Me, she received a diagnosis of multiple sclerosis. She was 49. The symptoms, legs giving out, numbness, profound fatigue, had reportedly been present for up to 7 years before doctors confirmed the cause. Imaging revealed roughly 30 lesions on her brain. Rather than withdraw, Applegate went public. She co-hosts a podcast called Messy with actress Jamie Lynn Sigler, who also lives with MS. She wrote a memoir, You with the Sad Eyes, covering her childhood, career, motherhood, and the particular weight of confronting both breast cancer and a progressive neurological illness. She's described waking up every day with significant pain in her feet and flare-ups that can leave her worse off for 4 days following any real exertion. And yet she keeps going, with a frustration she doesn't try to hide. That refusal to disappear is its own kind of legacy. From the Bundy daughter to a figure using her visibility to speak honestly about what most people suffer in private. 2. David Faustino as Bud Bundy. The younger Bundy kid, perpetually scheming, perennially unlucky with women, might have been easy to leave behind. Faustino didn't. After the show ended, he pivoted toward voice work, and the medium sustained him for decades. He voiced Mako the Firebender in The Legend of Korra, took on the role of Helio in Nickelodeon's Winx Club revival, and played Dager the Deranged in DreamWorks' Dragons, a character who moved from villain to something more complicated as the series progressed. He also bet early on digital media, developing and starring in Starving, a weekly comedy series on Crackle between 2007 and 2009, years before streaming became the default for entertainment. He reunited with Christina Applegate on NBC's Jessie and turned up in episodes of Modern Family, Bones, and The Bernie Mac Show. He spent years working as a celebrity DJ in West Hollywood, helping break acts that would later become household names. The voice that once delivered teenage punchlines became a tool that could travel anywhere. 3. Ted McGinley as Jefferson Darcy. He arrived in Season 4 as Marcy's new husband, handsome, directionless, slowly sinking under the weight of his marriage and the Bundys' relentless proximity. He could have been the straw that broke the show. Instead, Married with Children ran 5.5 more seasons after he joined. McGinley became so associated with joining shows near their end that a website named its central concept, Jumping the Shark, partly in his honor. But this show was the exception to his reputation. Born in Newport Beach, he'd already played Roger Phillips on Happy Days from 1980 to 1984, and Stanley Gable, the primary antagonist, in Revenge of the Nerds. He described landing Married with Children as a great gig, and the show backed that up by keeping him for 166 episodes across the remainder of its run. Sometimes the role that was supposed to mark your decline turns out to be the one that holds. Amanda Bearse as Marcy Rhodes/Marcy Darcy. Al Bundy's most persistent adversary, the neighbor who found him morally offensive, lived through 2 husbands on screen, and embodied a very specific strain of American suburban one-upmanship. Bearse came to the show with film credentials already in place, having played the vampire love interest in Fright Night in 1985. But the sitcom became the center of her professional life, as she appeared across all 11 seasons. What she built quietly alongside that was a directing career. Between 1991 and 1997, she helmed more than 30 episodes of the show, making her one of the first women in television to act and direct simultaneously on the same production. She later directed episodes of Reba, Dharma and Greg, and Veronica's Closet. In 1993, she came out as gay in The Advocate, becoming the first actress in a primetime series to publicly do so. She and her wife, Carrie Sean, have been married since 2010 and have 2 children. They live in Atlanta. Her story is about what it means to use a platform honestly, both behind the camera and in public life, when doing so still carried real risk. 5. Buck, the dog, as Bud Bundy. His real name was Mike. He was born in 1983, originally trained by Stephen Ritt, and at some point during Season 4 was officially renamed Buck on set to keep things from getting confusing. He appeared in 177 episodes, requiring a level of consistency and discipline that few performers of any species manage. He died on May 28, 1996, just months before the show's final season. The production replaced him with a new canine cast member named Lucky Bundy, a deliberate naming choice that acknowledged the transition rather than pretending continuity. But Buck was the one who had been there through almost the entire run, episode after episode, watching the Bundy family unravel. What Buck represents is the labor that never quite makes it into the conversation about television history. The animals, the crew, the support workers, the ones whose work shapes every scene without their names appearing anywhere people remember. He showed up faithfully for most of the show's existence. That counts for something. 6. David Garrison as Steve Rhodes. He graduated summa cum laude from Boston University's College of Fine Arts in 1974 and spent years with the resident company at Arena Stage in Washington, D.C., before television came calling. On Married with Children, he played the eternally reasonable neighbor, the man perpetually baffled by the chaos next door and perpetually losing to it anyway. After 4 seasons, he left. Not because the show was failing, it wasn't, but because he missed live theater. He returned 4 times in later seasons and appeared in the reunion special, but his real second chapter was on stage. He played Nathan Detroit in a national tour of Guys and Dolls, took on the Wizard in Wicked on Broadway, and in numerous other productions, winning a Carbonell Award for the role, and built an extensive television resume that includes 30 Rock, The West Wing, Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt, Law and Order, Murphy Brown, NYPD Blue, Everybody Loves Raymond, and Madam Secretary, among others. He chose the work that completed him over the work that made him comfortable. The stage gave back accordingly.